Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the B Plus podcast brought to you by Septimore Live. My name is Septimore.
My name's Nathan.
Tonight, we're going to be discussing the Resident Evil franchise, the new movies coming out. And Nasim is a big fan or a not a fan?
You'll find out. You'll find out real soon.
Okay. Yeah. So, we're going to be diving into that. I haven't listened to or watched the Resident Evil series since probably the first one. I gave up after that. I didn't like how it didn't really relate to the video games that I was a fan of. At least the first two, I kind of fell off after that, and then I hear that the new one, Resident Evil 7, is fantastic. My buddy said it's the scariest game that he's ever played. So, uh, yeah, I mean, you could start it off because this is going to be a majority Nason podcast with me ad-libbing a little bit. So
You can shut your mouth right now. I'm taking over.
do it up.
All right. You were talking about the game as in 7 because the last movie that's still in theaters is 6, right?
That's yeah.
I played the games before. They're very entertaining. The movies pretty much just borrow some characters' names and some settings like Umbrella, T-Virus, like that's it. I'm not gonna have a lot to say about 1 and 2. I'll talk more about 2 than more. Well, no way. I'm gonna talk way more about 1 than 2. You missed out by not following up. I think if you watch the first 2 movies, you might want to like not watch anymore. But there's some good things about it. I won't go through all the movies tonight. I'll go through so many, and then we'll do like a part 2. Let's see here. All right, Resident Evil 1 came out in 2002. And this is where they have a special military unit that fights a powerful, out-of-control supercomputer and hundreds of scientists who have mutated and flesh-eating zombies and creatures after a laboratory accident. That's going to be your IMDb description. And it's true. They have the programmer programmed in like the likeness or of his daughter, and she has to say like the line that was in every single trailer that was like on or advertised at that time was like, you're all going to die down here. And like that's like it watching it now, it does look dated. I guess they like had Alice wake up and then she has like amnesia, so that way they don't have to go through like telling you anything about her character. It's based on this game, we know, but in the end, it was a pretty forgettable movie. There was a lot of action, a lot of acrobatic things going on, shooting, fighting. It's an action movie overall. I wouldn't call it horror, or really, even though the games are based on horror. I mean, there's scarier stuff that would be in the game that you could have been playing than you're going to get on the screen here. I think this first one was rated R, which was strange because watching it was like,
I don't remember that. It was rated R.
They're getting shot, okay, and like there's no like squibs for blood. There's no like it's just like dust on their shirts when they get shot. It's just like, wait a minute, what? You're gonna rate this thing R and you're not gonna use like okay, whatever, that's fine. Moving on. Yeah, these are action movies predominantly, and I feel like if you're a kid and you wanted to watch the Resident Evil movie and you couldn't get in because it was R, I feel like you were like getting ripped off, but you could have let them in anyway because it really doesn't. I don't know how I grabbed the R rating. That was funny. There's a bunch of like what the fuck moments in it. Like I remember Alice came through like maybe like a stained glass window on a motorcycle. I'm like, all right. and then like
are you watching Resident Evil or Crank?
I don't know. Like, yeah, no. Then like the cycles like shoots like further into like the space that's allotted, and she shoots it and it explodes, and I'm just like, okay. And the bullet comes in slow time, like that slow motion time that like Matrix established, and everyone absolutely had to do after that. And like, I think that like the Resident Evil series like really takes that and like and just like grinds it into a fine dust. Like the bullet goes by a little slow, like, and you can tell it's like CG, and like the Umbrella Corporation's like on the bullet. And I'm like, oh, come on,
Matrix style, right?
Oh yeah, everything was Matrix style, especially then. You know what? It makes sense. Like it's the first movie. They didn't want to put any like money into the score, so it was like programmed like mock rock music. Like you can like hear like like a video game, but it's just like I'm like, what makes this worse? Is that like it's put together like this and the score that's mock rock and roll or like metal like accompanies it. I don't know. Like they could have put a lot more effort into this first movie. This was definitely not going to be the one that was going to break the video game port to movie curse. I think if they put more effort into it, they could have really got people like you into the series, but it just ended up being like a cookie cutter action film. At least they didn't do like a Doom where they had a POV type sequence at the end where
I heard that was the best part.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, at least they didn't like, okay, but at least Doom didn't like put bits of like its own video game in the movie to advertise it. There was some movie I remember did that once before. It was ridiculous. Okay, so one was kind of forgettable, but it was good for a first movie. I think it has the better ratings if you were to look like at a Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. It kind of sets the pace for the rest that to follow. The third one was the one I liked the most. The fourth was really like, but those are the ones we'll get to today if I get to the fourth. I really want to know, like, I don't think Mila Jovovich and Paul W.S. Anderson were together like in the first one, but I guess they fell in love while they were making these movies. And I feel at one point, I think it was around the fourth or fifth movie, I'm like, is Paul W.S. Anderson just making these movies so Mila Jovovich can keep starring in them? Like, I couldn't really figure out like what's.
They're lovers, right?
Yeah. I should really look into it. But the first one came out in 2002. I'll go into the one with the 2004 Resident Evil Apocalypse.
What a name!
Yeah, they weren't going to do 2s and 3s, so they were going to give them all a title. So, Mila Jovovich, I remember her being a fine actor or good for what she did in The Fifth Element. For some reason, I was a really big fan of that movie, and even to this day, I still like it. But I remember when people used to make fun of whatever the actress's name was in Twilight for just kind of standing around and having the same expression on her face all the time, then Mila kind of did that in the first two movies. I feel maybe she did in the third, and I was immune to it or just so used to it I couldn't see it anymore. The Alice character itself, and I'm going to shoot myself or want to for how many times I'm going to say the word one-dimensional during this, but her character is so one-dimensional. She wakes up with amnesia, she can't remember anything, her memory's gone. I think through the movies they're going to give you her backstory, but they didn't want to do it in the first one. But it still doesn't give her any extra dynamic to her. Not in 1, 2, or possibly even 3. Let me think. I guess the Umbrella Corporation is they're kind of ridiculous. They're one-dimensional in that manner too, where they just they're like, we're this evil corporation. We're out to do these dastardly things. And what starts to stop making sense, and I'll go into this when I talk about Resident Evil Apocalypse. Well, I'll do that now. All right. Resident Evil Apocalypse. Alice awakes. She wakes again. Okay. She woke up in the first one. She'll wake up in this one. In Raccoon City, only to find that
waking up from where?
She's just always waking up. If you watch these, you'll notice that she could be very much the focus of an experiment. She's the experiment, and they sometimes have to wipe her memory for them to do tests on her, and the tests will lead to them seeing how she's the most efficient fighter of anyone that could be infected with the T virus. And
it's Men in Black meets Wolverine.
It's she's supposed to be the savior or the best, and all it really does through the entire series is you learn that she has this ability, you learn that she has this ability, you learn that she has this level of power. It grows to a certain point, and then they take it away. It's it's the whole theme of I remember when I used to watch Dragon Ball Z, someone would be the most powerful person like Goku, and then he would die, and he'd have to take a real long walk back to get to where he was again. It's just her character still won't have many dimensions to it, and she either has power or she doesn't have power, or something like that. Resident Evil Apocalypse, she's in Raccoon City to find it's become infested with zombies and monsters. With the help of Jill Valentine and Carlos Oliveira, Alice must find a way out of the city before it's destroyed by a nuclear missile. The movie ends with basically a satellite, and there's a logo of.
Wait, what's Mila's name?
Alice. She's the main character in all of them.
They introduced Jill Valentine in the third one?
In the second one, I'm talking about 2004.
Oh, okay.
So at least Jill Valentine came into it, and I'm like, oh, okay, Jill Valentine. All right. So it ends. The logo is of Umbrella is on some satellite, and then like Q kill switch engage credits. And I'm just like, okay, what did I get out of this movie? If it was hard to get a lot of stuff out of one, then two is just showing you that like Umbrella is the super villain, and that's just all they are. They're everywhere, I guess, during this apocalypse, but the apocalypse already happened. They walled off a city. They're still running experiments. They have huge facilities. They never run out of funding or resources, or like they're trying to control everything while it's controlled, but everything is starting to be everything as in the world is now becoming post-apocalyptic. So I'm like, it begs the question, like, what are they here to accomplish? What what more can they accomplish? It's like this has all happened. They're thinking to themselves, what's next? And it makes me think like, I don't understand the direction they're having right now. It's starting not to make any sense at all. They still want to
continue.
I don't know if they want to be that dastardly kind of villain. There's more action. But at this point, you're learning that, like, even in 1 and 2, like, oh my god, more action, okay, but it's so dull, and you get bored with it really quick, and it's the only way I can describe it. I'm ready to move on to the one I have good things to say about, which is Resident Evil Extinction. That's 2007. What did it say? What's the survivors of the Raccoon City catastrophe travel across the Nevada desert, hoping to make it to Alaska. Alice joins this caravan and their fight against the evil Umbrella Corporation. Well, of the three we're talking about here, this is the strongest film in my mind. It could probably be argued that it isn't by anyone else, but for me, I liked that they were in the desert setting, but it's like the whole world's supposed to be a desert now because of this T virus that like killed off everything. So it just so happens that we're still in like the USA desert, I guess. Yeah, like if there's a desert everywhere, it just so happens we're still in the United States, and we got some word of that there's a place in Alaska that's safe, and there's people that have survived there, and I guess it gives them hope. The coolest part of it was like this caravan procession where they had each, which I thought was a pretty decent idea at the time, still do, that they had a purpose of every truck that they had there. So there was a school bus, and most of the people would be transported on the school bus. Then they had the tanker filled with whatever type of fuel they needed to fuel the rest of the stuff there. And there was a rig in the front that could be able to like crush or smash through whatever it had to. It was a pretty neat idea. They had like what was it, an ambulance for obviously taking care of like whatever medical emergencies could arise. I liked that they took that time to put like this spin on it. If we weren't running around in Raccoon City anymore, we weren't just trying to figure out or not figure out what Umbrella was going to do next. But there's desert everywhere, and there's zombies everywhere. It was much more visually pleasing. It looked better than the first two. It looks like the production went up. The makeup was way better. Paul put a lot of the ode to older zombie kind of like scenes into it. The one I think that most people would talk about or see quickly with zombies trying to experiment on a zombie to use a phone, and the person in the lab is like, "Say hello to your Aunt Alicia." That's supposed to be like Day of the Dead stuff. So he's putting.
Wait, what? Who's using a phone?
The zombie was using a phone. Umbrella will take the infected people, yeah, and like you try to use the phone. They're trying to see if there's any intelligence with them, and then Paul W.S. Anderson snuck in like an ode to I think it was Day of the Dead by like the by the guy performing the experiment yelling to the zombies, "Say hello to your Aunt Alicia." And like, I guess it was cool that he's going to do that, or not cool, whatever. I mean, he does it later on in the series in other movies. Let's see. I think that's it. At the end, it turns out that Alice is ready to rage all-out war on the Umbrella Corporation, and it turns out she is her own clone army at the end of it. And then they leave you like with that type of suspense, like, oh, we'll wait till you see the next movie. And are they going to go there? They've shown us that they're going to do this. Will they do it and capitalize on it? We don't know. We'll have to wait like 3 years until like Resident Evil Afterlife comes out in 2010.
So she's a clone?
She's a clone. She's been cloned many times. There's scenes in, I remember the one in 3 where she's a clone that wakes up in a red dress and gets killed over and over and over and over again. And there's a pit that they have to keep dropping all the clone killed bodies in the desert. And there's a big fence around this area where it looks like a deserted shack, but underneath it's one of the Umbrella Corporation's huge facilities. And whenever they show you the facilities, I don't know if they did it since 1, but they did it a lot in I think 2 and 3. They'll always set to establish like, oh, we're going to this this huge building in the ground, and they'll make it into like a CG blueprint, and you'll follow it as the blueprint. And then when you actually get to the room you're supposed to be in, you're just in the room. I guess it saves like maybe it's a device to be able to show where you're at and not have to like go too far into it. It saves the time. Maybe it's I don't know. Oh, okay, where were we? I don't want to get off track.
Soundtrack.
The soundtracks. Oh, A Perfect Circle shows up later on, and I think it's like this next film or something like that. And it's hilarious. A Perfect Circle being into these movies actually like became they wanted to keep rehashing the A Perfect Circle like song that they would play for that movie. So it was just like the same riff over and over and over and over. After a while, you weren't really listening to like APC's song. You were just listening to it like cut here and there. What did you got to the first movie you said?
Yeah, but I mean that came out in when?
2002.
Yeah.
So you bailed on it after that.
I bailed because I am, number one, a horror buff, and number two, was a Resident Evil fan, and I was ready to see my video game come to life. But as we know, there are no good video game movies. As we saw with Assassin's Creed, I didn't see it, but I know reviews aren't that stellar for it.
I was going to go see it, but I don't know. I think there was so many other things I wanted to see at that time. I just I'm like, maybe later, maybe never, maybe. Yeah, I don't think any of them actually did it. You know what? In my mind, I'm going to say that I feel like, and this is just my opinion, that the first Silent Hill did, because I played Silent Hills and then I saw the movie, and the movie was very, very eerie and had a really cool atmosphere to it. I didn't watch the second one, but the first one I thought did do it. But I guess for the record, I don't think any has ever done it. I mean, I thought Warcraft probably could have did it, but I guess not. I saw Warcraft. I liked it, but I guess
no one else did. I mean, they say, that the diehard Warcraft players were the people that enjoyed it, and movie critics were the ones that bashed it. So,
well, I was in there like the night it released, and I was like, oh, I better reserve tickets. This is going to be ridiculous. And I got there, and there was like 3 people behind me. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh no, this isn't really working out that well, and it didn't. I haven't rewatched it, and I thought I would have by now, but I just saw it in the theaters, and that was it.
So what are we at? Resident Evil 4?
We are at Resident Evil, I think it's Afterlife, which is 2010. Okay, so this will be the last one I do. I'll save Retribution, and I still have to see the new one, I think, for the next one, because I'll be able to see more about Retribution, because that was the one that kind of got me off the tracks, where I was just like, oh, this is headed in a decent direction. Well, I don't know. This fourth one got me off the tracks too. So
all right, we'll do it, and then I have a question or two. So
great. So if 1 and 2 weren't all that great, 3 being my favorite, 4 was like, oh God. So I think that's the one we're going to go into right now. But I wanted to, Resident Evil: The Final Chapter is 2017. So let's do Resident Evil Afterlife. So all those Alice's clones had shown up finally to one of the other facilities, and we're like, oh my God, they're going to deliver on what they said. So they're running around ready to jump and slice and dice, because one had swords and the other ones had like just guns to shoot at things. So they would shoot, and like there are explosions like there should be, because this is an action film. And then like 3 show up, and then 6 show up to help shoot at a chopper, and like they were just they just keep firing at it, like it's not taking any damage. but they're also in a post-apocalyptic like situation. Like you remember, like we would watch things like the Walking Dead. We're like, oh, we really have to conserve our bullets. Like they're not worried about that at all. They're just gonna just keep shooting at something in one direction until nothing happens or something happens. Let me think. It feels like this is fun because we've got as far as they did with the story, and we were moving forward, and it's funny. I think all the clones at some certain point get completely blown up, and then she gets shot in the neck with a serum or some kind of concoction, and she loses her powers. So everything that they had to be able to use for this forward movement is they just completely wipe all this stuff off the table and tie up every loose end. And I'm just like, well, why are you doing this? So that's probably why the fourth movie to me was just like, all right, like if I even started to have fun on the third one, now you just kind of blew it. You blew it. It's all over. There was some found footage in it. You would have loved that part, I guess, but they just
Found
have
footage buffet.
this is like found footage of like Mila having like a diary or something like that. They wrote themselves out of a corner and then just put themselves back into a corner. Oh, they wrote a shower scene for Ali Lauder. Ali Lauder. I can't say her name, for Ali and Mila. Ali Lauder. I can't do it.
Lautner.
Yeah, Lautner. Shatner. There's continuity errors though, because in the shower scene where they're actually like fully clothed, but this like I don't know what his name is. He shows up to kill them. Their showers would be on, but then the showers would be off in the next scene. But then you'd hear them and they'd still be off, and then it would switch again and it would be on. And I'm just like, this was something that if they left it in, they didn't care. They didn't care at all. The story starts to make no sense in 4. And Alice fights a boss, and then it's like clear trash, fight a boss. And like into the remix of a Perfect Circle. There's like a crappy fight in a completely white room. So at this point, I'm thinking, is this all green screen completely? The fight, besides the guy who had like whatever gigantic weapon that they had to fight and defeat in the shower scene. Let me see. Who was that? Like the first one, it was defeating the computer that told them they were all going to die down here. And then the second one, they had to fight. They had to fight one of the characters that was in the first one that was transformed into. What was his name? I can't remember right now. He actually turns and helps save them in the second one so they can get away. This one is probably Albert Wesker. Wesker, it becomes the unofficial official head of like the Umbrella Corporation. He himself had already taken some strain of the virus to make himself more strong, more powerful. So they have a Matrix-like fight with Wesker in a white room, and he seems like he's completely unbeatable. And they were able to seemingly defeat him. What did she do? There was kicking the dog in the first one. The bike thing I already told you about. She kicks a shard of glass that's falling through one of the T virus infected dogs. This is where they bring back Kmart's character, who was in the third one. Kmart's character again. You're giving us all these characters. There's no characterization for them. Everybody and everything at this point is one-dimensional, and we're going to bring some back. I wonder if these people came back because they wanted to, or they were written back in the story, or I don't even know how these things go on. Let me think. Some people got slammed into the tubes. Hybrid dogs ran around. Wesker showed up that he was like more of a mutant than you thought he was. You think he's dead, but then he's not really dead. And the movie ends again. And that's where we can pause it, and I can go into a longer description of Resident Evil Retribution from 2012. And I guess I'll have to go see the movie to tell you about Resident Evil, the final chapter.
Wait a minute. So it's 2012 and then now?
Yeah, there was a big gap in between. I think we were doing a couple years. There we went 2002, then 2004, then 2007, then you did 2010. So the biggest gap at that point was 3 years, 2012, and then we did 2017, because even if they had this ready to go, I think, and this probably wasn't the whole reason there was time in between these movies. Mila Jovovich and Anderson had a baby, so they had to wait for her to do that first.
Okay.
And
this
then
is the final chapter. Or
yeah,
is it like Friday the 13th, the final chapter?
they're saying in the title that it's Resident Evil, the final chapter. So I'll go over the final chapter in Retribution for our part 2 because I don't want to keep the one I didn't see, and the other one, like, I can say a lot more about maybe than the first 2 movies combined. No problem.
So, what's your thoughts on the franchise up until 4?
Oh, I didn't know where it was going with the first 2. I mean, yeah, I knew where it was going, but I'm like, wow, I'm just bored out of my skull. And then the third one, I'm like, hey, this is actually pretty good. The fourth one, I'm like, this is going to have to be good because of where we were set up by the end of the third one. And I'm like, oh, you're going to do that. And then, and then I think, while I was in the theater watching, well, I'll say that for the 2012 one, but while I was watching the I think I was going to the theater to watch the next one because I just wanted to see what was going to happen. Like, at this point, was it a guilty pleasure? I don't even know. That movie's ridiculous, and I don't know what they're going to do to end it, but it's probably time. One point I should bring up is that no, I'm not. I'm going to save it all for the next one.
So you can't even say whether you like it or not yet until the next one, obviously, as a franchise.
Oh, I'll be able to tell you what I think about the next movie and then tell you what I think about the last movie once I see it. I did like the third movie. That's for sure. Otherwise, this seems like a bunch of action movies just all strung in a row. And
which was funny because after I saw the first one, I didn't like it, and then they came out with a second one. I didn't pay no mind, and then I was in the theater and I saw the trailer, and I'm already like off Resident Evil. I see the trailer for the third one, and they're in a desert, and I go, "Fuck this movie, man! Like, screw this series. I'm out."
If you're gonna watch anyone, try that one, and then you can let me know what you think by the time we do another or follow up or the part 2 or whatever it's gonna be. A lot of things didn't make sense. I guess it wasn't meant to. I guess I'm picking on it a little bit, but yeah, I'm gonna finish it. It was a long series, 2002 to 2017.
Yeah, damn.
It had a long run. And what I wanted to say, and I'll say it right now, really quick, was that when it started, zombies weren't cool, and when they got to, I think maybe the Retribution, the one on 2012, they're like, we got something here because zombies are so cool right now, and they decided to like, hey, we got to keep this going.
Yeah, but now it's overly saturated, so maybe going in a more action-oriented movie is kind of good for them. I think it's saturated. I mean, that's something we'll talk about another time on another podcast on why Walking Dead's the worst show that ever existed.
I don't know,
or how Walking Dead is the real life people Dragon Ball Z. Either one, whatever you want to do.
I see what you're saying there. Sure. Yeah. I'll tie some of that stuff into our next one. That we will have more things to make points about. But if you watch the trailer for Retribution, you'll see bits and pieces of it where it's supposed to look like we're in normal houses. This isn't a desert. We're not stuck on a ship. This is supposed to be suburbia, and we're getting attacked by zombies. It's like the ode to like we just look how successful The Walking Dead is.
No, I hear you. Anything else?
Nope. Nada.
All right. Well, thank you for that Resident Evil movie franchise history up until the 4th episode. As you heard that we will be doing another one. Our next episode will also be on something that I wanted to do, that I wanted to discuss, which is more lifestyle, is schedules, maintaining schedules, and morning rituals. I will discuss mine. I will let you know. And yeah, that's it. So tune in next time. This is, as always, brought to you by SefToMoreLive.com. If you enjoyed this video, please click subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.
See you guys soon.